friends, and welcome back to Vic's Sewing Corner. So this week I have a bit of a different video, just from normally sewing and that kind of tutorial thing. I decided to do a review on some Netflix shows that I have been binging lately. All of these I have watched for a second time, so highly recommend all the shows. I really didn't feel like making something this week. I just didn't really have the energy to start a new project. Not that a petticoat takes a long time to make, but I just didn't want to do it. So do not fret, that video will be up next week. I promise I will make the project next week. So today I will be reviewing 3 Netflix shows. The Tutors, which obviously is about the Tutors. Turn Washington Spies, which is about the American Revolution. And then Anne with an E, which is just kind of about more rural life in the end of the Victorian era. So let's review all of these different shows. First up, I have The Tutors, which takes place during King Henry VIII's reign, during the 1530s, I'd like to say. And also with all of these different shows, I'll be reviewing the women's costumes primarily, just because I have a lot more knowledge of the women's costumes, and I did do a good amount of research to put this video together in the first place, but I'm not a historical fashion expert, so don't take everything I say super accurately, just my opinions. So the Tutors costumes were created by Joanne Bergen, and I would give overall the whole show an accuracy rating of about 5.5 out of 10. Now, the big inaccuracies I found with the Tutors was, first off, the women's hair is down and uncovered a lot, which is just a huge no-no, especially in the more, you know, medieval-ish times. It's just a huge no-no to have women's hair uncovered and down. So that was the first huge thing. Then another problem was the hair was typically covered, at least in the nobility, by a French hood or other hair coverings of the sort, and they used tiaras and other just extravagant things that would not have been used. Now, another huge inaccuracy is the tight-fitting sleeves. Now, in this time period, there was lots of oversleeves over your normal kind of form-fitting sleeves, and they just, you know, would have given more of a bell shape, and it just would not have been a normal sleeve that we see nowadays that's form-fitting. On the flip side, something that I did find was accurate, I guess, was the neckline. For the most part was spot on with the square kind of lower neckline that the women wore of that time period. So that's pretty much all I can say about it. Overall, not extremely accurate. At times they were. The silhouette was pretty good, okay. But the biggest problem was definitely the hair, and also no shifts that you could really see were visible. So those were my biggest problems. Next is Turn Washington Spies, and I love this show. I really do. If you don't like blood and guts, definitely don't watch it. But I genuinely love all the action and drama and romance. Not 100% historically accurate, but definitely more than the Tutors. The costumes from Turn were by Donna Zakowska. I hope I pronounced that right. I would give the accuracy about an 8 out of 10. There were definitely things that they could have improved upon, but I think overall it was fairly good. So the big inaccuracies were sometimes that I could find the women wore nothing underneath their stays, not a corset, a stay. which is the biggest no-no and pet peeve for me. It's like, of course these actresses are going to complain about their corsets or stays being uncomfortable. You're not wearing anything under it. Like, it's just, ugh. And also the chemise shift, they were used to, you know, absorb the body's oils and to protect the other garments such as a stay. So it definitely was just huge inaccuracy. And then another thing that kind of gets me is that Anna, who is like a working class woman, she doesn't tend to wear a kerchief, fichu, whatever you want to call it, on her neck. She wore it a couple of times when she was in the Continental Army camp during the winter, but when it's like more warmer seasons, she didn't seem to be wearing one, which is just really inaccurate. Women of all classes wore fichus. They were used for modesty. They were used, honestly, to keep the sun off of people's shoulders and backs. So that wasn't super accurate. Things that they definitely did get right was the women's hair is always up, unless they're, you know, doing the deed. Their hair is usually always up, which was 100% what happened in the 18th century. Especially a married woman, her hair would never be down. It was just really promiscuous and not something that would have been seen. So beyond the hair being up, it usually would have had some sort of cap during the day. As you saw in my video, making a fichu and a cap for the 18th century, that is definitely what they would have worn. So I also really like the silhouettes. They got those pretty spot on with the stays and the gowns over that. So the silhouettes were definitely really great. And this is probably the one comment I have about men's fashion. I really like that the Continental Army, the soldiers, did not wear wigs. Their hair was not cut short though. It was short enough that they could pull it back, securing it with a ribbon. So that was definitely what was accurate to that time. A lot of upper class men wore the wigs, but if you were in the army fighting lower class, you really wouldn't have been wearing a wig. And also by that time period, towards the 1780s, wigs were really kind of going out of fashion. More of the traditional men stuck with them, but they were definitely going out of fashion with the younger guys. I also love the patterns and textures that they used in the women's gowns. It's very visible that they were trying to be historically accurate with that. The colors, just everything really matched that kind of aesthetic of 18th century. So overall, I think they did a really great job. Could have improved a couple things, but overall, really great. And now the last show is Anne with an E, which I adore. I love everything about her. It's like those cottagecore vibes. It's just so happy and fun to watch for most of the time. So Anne with an E, the costumes were designed in the first season by Anne Dixon and the second and third season by Alex Rita. So they were amazing. They did their homework. They really did their best. I would give the show a 9 out of 10. I don't give it a 10 out of 10 just because, you know, we don't necessarily know that it was 100% accurate, but it was really done very well. It transported you back in time. So the pretty much only inaccuracy I found with it, and this was only after watching somebody else's video, is it didn't appear that the women were wearing corset covers. And they usually would have worn those just to kind of smooth out the shape, because a corset could have had some very visible harsh lines. That can be seen in some of the costumes, but it wasn't really a huge deal. So the accuracies, the things they got right. let's start off with the Avonlea Girls and Anne. So they were schoolgirls. I think this show started and they were somewhere around 12, 13 years old. And they would not have been wearing corsets yet, I guess, in that area. In some places like England, they would have started girls on trainer corsets. But in Prince Edward's Island, I guess, they didn't. So the girls are seen wearing pretty much replicas of the women's clothing. It's just shorter in length. And then they usually were covering those with pinafores, white pinafores, which, you know, were kind of just to keep the dresses clean while girls were doing chores and while they were working. And it's pretty spot on for the Victorian school child, so A+ there. The length of the dresses were pretty good. Another thing that was great was the flat-brimmed hats of the 1890s. That's something that definitely was worn all the time. Anne's iconic straw hat, and just some of the other ladies having their nice, beautiful, more flat-brimmed hats. And some of the hats are more extravagant. That was also definitely seen in the 1890s. Another huge thing, puff sleeves. And puff sleeve dress that was just to die for. And really, Diana's, all of her dresses you could see had some sort of puff to the sleeve. That was a huge, huge thing in the late Victorian, early Edwardian era. So I love that they just captured that. Wasn't too much, it was definitely just the right mix of puff. So another thing, just like in turn, the women all had their hair up. The girls usually wore their hair down as a symbol of youth, you know, kind of naivety. And so the women, once you went through puberty, you would wear your hair up, you would wear a corset, things like that. Your skirt hem would drop. And they always did a great job of having the women wear their hair up and pinned. And I thought it was just a great little thing that they kept in there. I also really love the high collars. That's personally a favorite of mine for that time period, is just the high collars, and they definitely got that, which is so awesome. The silhouette was also just really great with the corsets and the dresses, and they really got the like kind of high waistline of that period. So overall, I'd say they put a ton of time and effort into Anne with an E, and yeah, I would give that a 9 out of 10, 100%. Loved the costumes, my favorite time period. So yeah, I really hope that you guys enjoyed this little video. You know, like I said, I'm not an expert by any means, but I really hope that you learned a little something and really should watch these shows. They're really awesome. So please like and subscribe, and if you want to request a video about me making something, or maybe even me doing another one of these like reviews on historical costumes, you could comment some shows that I should start watching, and I'll be happy to do that. So thanks. Bye.